Good morning, Commissioners, Chief Moore, Mr. Teefank, Madam Secretary, Mr. Inspector General, Mr. City Attorney Carlos de la Guerra, and members of the public. Today is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect Commissioners Suthers, Shields, Briggs, and Kalanchi are present, and we have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning. The Police Commission is committed to ensuring equal access to its meetings. It is requested that individuals who require the services of a translator contact the board secretary no later than the day preceding the meeting. Whenever possible, a translator will be provided. Sign language interpreters, assistive listening devices, or other auxiliary aids and/or services may be provided upon request. To ensure availability, you are advised to make your request at least 72 hours prior to the meeting you wish to attend. All public comment will be heard during item number 2 on the agenda. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. The members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given an additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of speakers will be a speaker in the room will go first, then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate between speakers in the room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you are free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinions shall be deemed off topic and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in the meeting in a number of ways outlined on the agenda. Number 1, submit a speaker card to one of the officers who will then give the card to the board secretary indicating you wish to speak during the meeting. 2, submit written public comment in advance of the meeting to email address policecommission@lapd.online. 3, if you've logged into Zoom, raise your virtual hand. Or 4, you can call into the phone number listed on the agenda and press *9 if you want to speak on an agenda item. If you wish to just listen to the meeting, you can call in to the phone number listed on the agenda that are designated for call-in and listening. Message for those attending the meeting in person. These meetings are regular meetings between the board, the department, and key stakeholders. Meetings of the Board of Police Commissioners are open to the public. The state's Ralph M. Brown Act affords the public the opportunity to be present at the meetings, hear the presentations, and dialogue in real time, and provide feedback via the public comment period. During these meetings, there is a need for the board to carry out public business expeditiously without delays or disruptions. Members of the audience shall not engage in any conduct which causes an actual disruption of the meeting. Those attending in person, you are reminded that disruptive behavior will be cause for removal. If you disrupt the meeting, you will be provided only one warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. While in the boardroom, members of the audience must be seated. Standing is not permitted. In the past, standing may have been permitted for a few, but moving forward, this courtesy will not be afforded to attendees except for the credentialed members of the press. All attendees must be seated. Failure to follow this rule will result in a warning and/or removal from the meeting. At this time, we will move to item number 1, the report of the Chief of Police, Chief Moore.
Commissioner President Suthers, good morning. Commissioner Shields, Commissioner Briggs, Commissioner Kalanchi, Executive Director Teefank, and Mr. Sibley. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about significant events, and I'm going to narrow my remarks to this morning, the tragic accident that occurred when 2 of our officers, while searching an area of the 57 freeway, were struck violently by what we believe is to be a DUI suspect. What began this was in Newton area about midnight. Uniformed officers observed a stolen vehicle and attempted to stop that vehicle, and from that pursuit ensued. As that pursuit moved about the region, eventually terminated itself back in the Linwood area where the suspect was taken into custody. He had an outstanding felony warrant, a weapon inside the vehicle, as well as narcotics, and the vehicle had been, as I stated earlier, reported stolen. During the course of the vehicle pursuit, the officers believed that the individual driving the vehicle had discarded a weapon on the freeway. So officers backtracked, two uniformed officers from Newton area backtracked that area, and as they were moving on the northbound 57 freeway at a slow pace, they were struck from behind by a lone motorist. She suffered injuries, as did the other officers. All three parties were transported from the scene to a hospital and are receiving care. They visited both our uniform officers bedside, and they are banged up pretty good and suffered some contusions and lacerations and head injuries from the violence of the collision. However, they are both expected to live and survive this collision. The driver of the other vehicle did exhibit signs of being intoxicated and is currently a California Highway Patrol investigation to book her for felony DUI. The California Highway Patrol will conduct the criminal investigation of this, and then our collision investigations from our major collision investigation team responded to the scene and will conduct the administrative investigation into that. There were no categorical uses of force during this last reporting period, and I'll move over to our crime pictures. The violent crime continues to have a 4.8% reduction, a 17.8% reduction in the number of homicides. That's 63 fewer homicides than the same period last year. In regards to, we also see reductions in each of our other violent crime categories. Our challenges remain in our property crime arena, where our burglaries are just now above the line. Personal thefts are up by 14%, and our vehicle thefts are now essentially even from where we were the same period last year. And the month of October signified a significant continuation of a trend that began back in 2021, and that is an increase in year-over-year in motor vehicle thefts. The month of October actually experienced the highest number of motor vehicle thefts since January of 2004, and we are on pace for vehicle thefts, if we remain even with last year, that you'll have to go back to 2005 to have the same level. When we look at the things that are contributing to that, we're noticing that the Hyundai, Kia, and electric bikes are the major contributors. They make up 69% of our increase from 2019. What's influencing that, the majority of the Hyundai and Kias, is the TikTok video and the knowledge on the street about the ease in which those vehicles can be stolen by simply breaking into the steering column and disabling the ignition system with a simple USB port. The efforts of impacting that is to make arrests, identify those responsible, bring them before the criminal justice system. When we look at our arrests over this past year, we're noticing this time versus earlier years that our offenders are getting older. The number of juvenile arrests are actually down, but the
Chief,
number
excuse me. Can we allow the chief to give the report, please, and have one person speaking at a time? Excuse me? We'll do that. We'll do that. Thank you. Chief, please continue.
Sure. So in regards to the impacting this phenomenon, there's three aspects of this I'd like to draw attention to. First is prevention. We're asking the members of the public who have, particularly those two makes of models of vehicles, to take advantage of steering wheel locks. The ignition, the faultiness in those ignition systems is that they're easily overcome by a novice. And so steering wheel locks will provide a level of protection and will afford those vehicles the necessary deterrence. Secondly, as we're seeing today, that of arrests that are made, approximately 49% are felony filings. And as offenders are getting older and we see more repeat offenders, it's going to be critical that we continue to ensure.
Excuse me, Chief. Can we give the chief the courtesy of giving the report? If we can't do that, then we will empty the room and continue the meeting. Thank you, Chief. Please continue.
Lastly is the detection of these. The department is currently working to expand the number of license plate reader deployments. These are automated technology that allows us to place them in public areas, major thoroughfares, and identify those vehicles that have been reported stolen as a means of identifying the suspects responsible and recovering those vehicles. I look forward to our continued work in all three of these areas as we look to the public with their efforts to counter it by hardening the target and our efforts to identify those responsible and bring them before the criminal justice system. I'll close by saying the technology which you will hear report on today from Deputy Chief John McMahon on the license plate readers is certainly an area we want to see expand significantly. This best example of the value of that was just this last week when an individual went in the West Hollywood area and had what appeared to be a long rifle, an assault weapon. It turned out later to be a pellet gun. But he was captured on video pointing that weapon at a school administrator. And as he fled that location, a community member took a photograph of that vehicle, including its license plate. That license plate was then picked up by one of those license plate readers a few short blocks away, allowing the sheriff's department to respond into the area, locate the suspect and the vehicle, and make the arrest. So the technology of the eyes and ears is important to us as we see the finite number of officers, and we cannot be in all places, is that technology is a real force multiplier, and I look forward to our work in seeing such systems installed in areas across the city, particularly in those areas that have a desire for that. With that, I'll move over to, as I said earlier, we had no additional officer-involved shootings or any categorical use of force. So year-to-date, we stand at 31 officer-involved shootings. Last year-to-date, that was the same number of 31, with 15 fatalities. This year-to-date, last year, that number was 14. Our personnel numbers have not changed since my last report, which stand at 8,970 sworn personnel, and our civilian professional staff stand at 2,610. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Chief. With that, I'll take questions or comments from Commissioner Kalanje.
Thank you. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
Just to follow up on the license plate readers, what is our current equipment? Like, what do we have already? And is it something that we're trying to get more of?
Yeah, so we currently have the license plate readers on some of our black and white vehicles, and we've recently activated a feature of license plate reading on our digital in-car video systems. So those are mobile units, so those officers move about. We have currently one what's called a mobile license plate reader that is on a trailer that can be assigned a location and moved about based on underlying crime trends and patterns. We have 3 additionals that will be coming on board by the end of this year, this calendar year. And we recently entered into an agreement with a private vendor that has these type of devices used in commercial businesses and by homeowners associations and so forth. And we've recently entered into an agreement where that information can be shared with us so that if we're on the lookout for a stolen vehicle or a violent crime suspect, we can query that system and it can alert us as to the movements. So this is a growing area of interest. We see other model cities. It's called a smart city model that uses technology to be added eyes and ears of the types of for the types of crimes I've talked about here.
Are these real time? Do we get the information in real time? So as cars are going through these readers, do we get that information real time?
Yes, they can be, and this is an area that and Chief McMahon will be here later today to talk more about the emerging technology of us bolstering that, so that the desire is, as we move into 2024, is that as those systems find an alert, that a notice would be sent to the local officers in the area, so that their attention could be drawn to those investigations.
Okay, I'm thinking about opportunities to prevent like car chases and things like that sometimes end up in serious situations. So I guess we can ask Chief McMahon, but thank you for that. So the other question I have is around the juvenile arrests are down, but what is the age range of the repeat offenders
Sure.
that you discussed?
So 58% of the individuals arrested this last year for auto theft are between the ages of 30 and 49. 80% of the arrests are male. When we look at previous years, there was going back some 20 years ago when auto theft was at the rates that we see today, 55% of the arrestees were between the ages of 11 and 24. So you've seen a shift, a marked shift into older offenders, which also in our history has shown that these are more habitual offenders that are not just a single instance and a lone occasion, but rather have been involved in previous felonious crimes, which is why it's important that when we make those arrests and we see that type of habitual offender, that the criminal justice system treats them with the requisite seriousness.
So in the past, it could have been like just young people doing joyrides and not real criminal intent, but now you're saying that could be like a business where like they're taking these cars and selling them or their parts or things like that.
Or for transportation, a host of reasons, but this year to date, 5% of our arrestees were between ages of 11 and 17, which is, when you go back to 2003, that 19% of our arrests were between the ages of 11 and 17. Now, having said that, we saw just this weekend tragedy when a group of young people in their teens were driving a stolen vehicle and collided into another motorist, seriously injuring that individual. The driver of that vehicle was 17 years of age. The other 3 or 4 occupants that were in that vehicle ranged in ages from 14 to 16. And they all suffered significant injuries themselves. So this is not to say that we don't have juveniles that are engaged in these Kia or Hyundai thefts, but to date, we've not seen the level that we have seen in other parts of the country. But it is something that we're well aware of because popularity of this availability of these cars to be stolen like this. We also want to make sure that there's deterrent values so kids are not drawn into that, thinking that it's a harmless or childhood stunt that will not endanger them or others.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Briggs?
Thank you, President Suthers. Chief, picking up on the thread of what Commissioner Kalanche was just discussing, more particularly with respect to these increased in theft of automobiles and the TikTok video. Have you spoken with the district attorney and or the U.S. attorney about possibly having those videos removed? Because I don't know whether or not they are protected by the First Amendment, because they're actually counseling people how to commit crimes. And so there may be a legal basis to have those social media platforms remove those types of videos that encourage and teach people how to commit crime.
So, Commissioner, I believe that has been done, but I'll go back and revisit that as well. And I know also there's been litigation involving the manufacturers of those vehicles because of not taking what is viewed as appropriate safeguards to protect the victims from this type of theft and the public nuisance that's associated with it. But I'll go back. I do know that we do work regularly with social media platforms for when there's acts of violence or exhorting criminal activity, to have that information taken down.
Great. Thank you, Chief. No more questions.
Thank you. Vice President Shields?
Thank you, Chief. Sorry, my voice is barely there. One thing that it seems like the crime statistics doesn't necessarily reflect is like the brazenness of some of the crimes that have been occurring and the number of perpetrators. How has there been updates on like the smash and grab robberies that you can speak to?
So, unfortunately, this weekend was a very bad weekend when it comes to smash and grab or mob robbery instances. We had 2 occasions, one in the Fashion Square in the San Fernando Valley that was targeting perfumes, and then a second one that occurred in the Beverly Center. We don't believe they were related. In the Beverly Center, again, targeted a major department store were perfumes. There were arrests in those. The Organized Retail Theft Task Force responded to both. And later on Saturday, we then had a grab and run or a mob robbery that occurred at the Nike store in Freedom Plaza that has garnered a fair amount of attention on social media on the brazen actions. Individuals involved in that Some have been identified, and the investigation, I do believe, will result in arrests, at least of a portion of them. And we are working with understanding where that material, where the loot, if you will, the items are being stolen, how are those being fenced or how are those being sold? So our efforts are ongoing with that. I'm proud of the work of the Organized Retail Theft Task Force. Up to this weekend, we had actually seen a 57% reduction in the number of these instances in a rolling 8-week period from when we first established this task force into the last 8 weeks. But again, a very, no more had I talked about that, and that our work continued when then we saw this spat. Going forward, operations has assigned additional patrol resources in the major shopping corridors. Our Metropolitan Division mounted unit is also being deployed in our shopping centers. I saw them at the Topanga Plaza this weekend, and we will continue with added deployments as we go through the holiday season. We are, lastly, are working with major retailers to encourage them to take added safeguards in protecting their merchandise and providing access to their stores of such large groups and working with us quickly. However, the challenge here is that the Freedom Plaza, that Nike store, that entire event took place in less than 60 seconds. So these are coordinated events with 4 or 5 cars arriving, but our commitment is to identify them responsible, and as they become or are serial, is that we'll tie them together and we'll prosecute, identify and prosecute those individuals.
Thank you, Commissioner Shields. Madam Secretary, we'll now move on to agenda item number 2, public comment. Would you announce the first speaker?
The first speaker, Jonathan Foster.
Hello, Jonathan Foster. You're going to have DACA people be LAPD officers. And this is why I didn't sign up into the military or the police, and I don't do a service job, because I don't support this crap. It's illegal. I heard that T-Fink got fired. He was the police chief. This is related. And he got fired for trying to hold up on due process. But all of a sudden here they're doing DACA and you're going along with it. The U.S. Supreme Court gave the decision that DACA was illegal and unconstitutional. You can't do what you're doing. It's already been decided on. You can't do that. And Jameel Shaw Jr., black kid, was coming home from the mall, was shot in the face by what was called Dreamer back then as a DACA. Now he's in prison forever. Wasn't rounded up and deported. He could still be out of jail. Now, he's got to spend the rest of his life in jail. He could be walking around if they just actually deported him to Mexico, where he speaks that's the language he came from. That's where he came from. People think I don't like Latinos. That's just such a crazy thing. I mean, I just hope you don't get shot in the face. And his mom was serving in Iraq, and George Bush, the creep hole, wouldn't let her come home and grieve. He made her stay in war. What a sick man. Takar Smith was shot 7 times. In the Graham versus O'Connor decision in 1989, it said arrest on a reasonable officer, right? But he was shot 7 times. Listen to this one.
Validate that is talk to somebody who ever shot so many times. We have these closed sessions, and during the closed sessions, there's no secret that we adjudicate cases. Either the training's
Wrong training.
but when people in the same circumstance with the same training respond the exact same way at the same time, I can understand that.
Yeah, he just understands that. When you got 3 officers and they shoot multiple times and the person dies, when I thought we were trying to de-escalate and you would just shoot somebody one time, that the officer was reasonable. And Jessica Brown, she was shot dead. And what I've talked about, this is what is important, is when are you getting the net guns? They shoot net guns at buffaloes, lions, giraffes. Why couldn't you have hit these people with a net gun? They hit Jessica Brown with a less lethal. It could have been a net gun. Takar Smith, he was on the floor. They could have hit him with a net gun. These two people are dead. This is why I'm the chief of police, not you. You're a jerk. You lied to me. You got these DACA people coming. I want to like you. I just do. I want to. But you're making it hard for me to like this.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
The first speaker on Zoom, Philip Tabby. What items
All
would you like
items,
to speak
please.
on? Thank you.
All items, please.
Okay.
Good morning, Commission. Kalanche, nice of you to join us. How many meetings have you missed? Do you really take your role as police commissioner seriously, or are you here to find money you couldn't obtain for your nonprofit? We also have another missing commissioner for today's meeting. He's a brand new one, too, and he's missing already. Mayor Bass, please look into this. Police Commission and Mayor Bass, please fix the non-emergency line, LAPD non-emergency line. The wait time is completely preventable. I called non-emergency on a Monday at 11 a.m. and I waited for 50 minutes, almost an hour. Community members always complain about calling and never get through because most of them hang up in frustration. But this department continues to go downhill under Chief Cover-Up Moore. Commission, I'm hearing that the same commander who was a captain at the time he perjured himself to overturn a BLM motion is allegedly having an affair with another officer's wife. As a result, that officer is having medical issues because of the stress. Mike promoted the commander after he perjured himself, and now he's having an affair with another officer's wife. You sure know how to pick him, Mike. Go to Tennessee. We don't want you here anymore. We need a real chief of police. Happy Thanksgiving. God bless our LAPD. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. The next speaker, Andrew G.
All right, I'd like my 8 minutes that the chief got. Let's see, starting off with the chief's report, of course. It should be limited to 3 minutes. If the chief takes more than 3 minutes, we should be able to match whatever the chief takes. He's not special. And regardless of anything, everyone should be allowed to speak, both in person and on the phone. So, it's just a lot of, and you say crime's down, so why are you proposing to increase the LAPD budget today? Why do you need more cops when crime's down? That doesn't make sense in any sense, except for the fact that, of course, you have nothing to do with stopping crime. Let's see, we have the consent agenda, we have video conferencing, visitation. So, are you also allowing in-person visitation? Because I know that's been an issue recently. And you should have a system where the cops cannot listen in on people's conversations. Yeah, let's see. We have donations. We have, let's see. Hang on, we got the donations here. We have donations for 77th Street Morale and Well-Being, $20,000. Is that, what they say, $20,000 buys a lot of morale. We have lots of money. We have the Central Division Heroes and Helpers, the Hollywood Heroes and Helpers, the Van Nuys Heroes and Helpers. That's the weird thing where the cops go with a bunch of children and go holiday shopping. It's really weird. And it's a good time to remind you that the LAPD shot and killed Valentino Oriana Peralta, who was 14 years old, right, just a couple days before Christmas, a couple years ago. We have donations for the holiday parties. You got the Van Nuys, you got the Central Division Holiday Party, which is $20,000. You have the Mounted Platoon Holiday Party, I propose for their holiday party they should go around the city and pick up all the horse poop that they didn't pick up. The mounted division. That should be their holiday party. Let's see. We have training division, training bureau, and training division. What's even the difference between the training bureau and the training division? Justice for Takar Smith and.
The next speaker on Zoom, Paula Miner. Good morning.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, what items would you like to speak on?
All of them 3 minutes, please. Before I begin my remarks about Takar Smith, I think this case is important for the commission to think about. Changing the policy, changing the procedures on how LAPD responds to mental health cases should be one of the primary goals of this new commission. This goes on way too far that LAPD is killing people who are not committing a crime, who should not be killed, who are simply in need of help. And, whatever it takes for this commission to change that direction, whatever other agencies they need to work with, this should be a priority. When we talk about Takar Smith, his murder was out of policy. His wife, as we said last week, walked to Rampart Station to ask for mental health help. She did not call the police because he was being violent, because he was committing a crime, because he was out in public. He was home and she knew he needed help. She told them that he already had some instances of illness. She knew that. They should not have responded in the way they did. And, it's just tragic. It's tragic that those trained in mental health assistants were not called, that LAPD did not take the time. Often LAPD tells us when these cases occur at night, well, at nighttime, there's no pet team, there's no mental health people available. This was in the middle of the day, early day. They could have waited to make sure they got the proper assistance that this man needed. This particular murder is out of policy. As I said before, he was in need. He was not committing a crime. The response should not have been 6 officers in a violent, aggressive stance. And when they were there was no need to kill him. If 6 LAPD officers cannot restrain or wait one individual who is not threatening them, who does not have a lethal weapon, that's tragic as well. So, as I said, he should not have been killed. 6 officers should not have responded. And again, Chief Moore always talks about getting community trust for the police. This is an example of why we feel that we cannot trust LAPD. They have a lack of respect for life, especially Black life. So quickly do they pull a gun out to solve a problem that doesn't need a gun to resolve it. So again, the Takar Smith case is out of policy, and this must change. This must change. I yield my time.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Donald Harlan.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I would like to mention, I noticed some things on the agenda about the increase of budget for LAPD. You guys want an MOU, so you know that you're not to acknowledge or endorse the mayor's budget, you're just to ignore that. If LAPD needs to hire somebody, go ahead and hire them. But nobody needs to be dreaming up, hey, we're gonna make up money so we can hire people. That's just a wrong approach for the city. There's to be no lateral hiring by the mayor or vice president or anybody. Nobody from any office should be appointing anybody in my city or promoting people or placing people or, there's nobody in the government authorized to say, hey, I'm the president of the United States, so I'm gonna appoint the mayor of Los Angeles. No, I'll fucking kill that fucking Jew. Okay? What we have
Mr.
here
President,
from
this is
your,
Hayes
Sir,
Gates. I
what we
would
have
sir,
here
this
from
you're-
your,
be ejected.
Sir, your time has been
income,
concluded.
your income and your,
Sir, your time has been concluded. Please step away from the painted podium or you will be removed from the room.
Mr. President, I would ask that this individual be
all.
removed from the room.
Sir, remove yourself from the room.
Cut the mic. Cut the mic.
identity theft,
The mic is on. Sergeant at Arms, please remove this gentleman from the room. Thank you.
stolen property in the state, embezzlement, diversion, conversion.
Sir, remove yourself from the room.
Mr. Sutter, your employment is terminated in the city.
Thank you. Remove yourself from the room.
Employment is terminated in the city immediately. Whoever sent you to LAPD
Sir,
also terminated.
remove yourself from the room.
Clear? You hear my threat? You're out.
Thank you, Madam. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
We have no other Zoom speakers, sir. We will proceed with in-person. The next
please.
speaker is Stacy Segarra Bollinger.
All agenda items and general comment. There's a lot of reports here. It's just you guys like telling each other you're doing a good job and that you need more money. This department report relating to donations. Looking at these numbers is kind of crazy. I serve on a neighborhood council. Our yearly budget is around $30,000. And that's to do a lot of community service. That's to distribute hygiene supplies and clothing to unhoused residents. That's to create community events for our neighbors, like movies in the park. And we had a Veterans Day event recently at our senior center where we did free haircuts and had all kinds of community members supporting our unhoused residents. The LAPD doesn't do anything like that. These are the types of things that actually create community, which prevents crime. It supports families, it supports individuals. Y'all have nothing to do with that. But why? You could. You decide where your money goes. You throw $20,000 at each other for parties like it's nothing. That's 2/3 of a neighborhood council's yearly budget to hold several meetings a month, to store our supplies, to do events, to support the unhoused residents in our community, to support our neighbors. And y'all throw it at parties like it's chump change. It's pretty disgusting if you ask me. I work for the city. I can barely afford my rent. I'm not going to tell you what department I work for, but all my colleagues, we're struggling to pay rent. We're struggling to support our families. We're struggling to keep our fridges stocked to eat enough. These numbers are awful. Let's go to that inmate visitation system. We're treating our inmates like money mills. Our inmates are treated by you like, just tools for revenue. And you're charging them all kinds of money for sending gifts, a nickel to send a GIF, for a loved one to send a GIF. Web transaction fee, $3. Live operation transaction fee, $5.95. But there's no numbers in the information you provided. And in the contract on the provider's website, there's XX% of commission. So how much money are y'all making off the inmates that you also get paid to put in jail? What's that about? I think that's information we should know. In my neighborhood, there's a lot of car accidents, and I'm noticing that when police respond to them, they're not helping pick up any of the trash. And I've seen police litter with pieces of their flare guns, plastic pieces, and throw their trash on the ground and then become indignant towards me when I ask them to pick it up. Protect and serve is a joke. Y'all need to do better.
The next speaker, Hamid Khan.
All right, so the chief started this morning and his comments very gloatingly about license plate readers and just that whole dragnet surveillance that keeps on. But didn't mention that how Vigilant Solutions, the manufacturers of license plate readers, and what happens to that data, and how if not too long ago, just a couple of years ago, what we saw Pasadena and Long Beach and other cities share all their license plate reader data with ICE, and how it impacted the undocumented community and the immigrant population. And of course, LAPD comes back, well, just no, we don't share information, but that's bullshit because we know how the stalker state works, how fusion centers work, how information sharing environment works. So, which brings me to this, 785 pages document that was released on Friday? 767 pages of document for the budget. And within 72 hours, it's up for a vote at the police commission. And we, the people, are expected to know what the budget says. And then, of course, this group of people are expected to even know that what the first page says, out of that whole document, and this is what's going to happen. But this is a record increase. This is going to be the largest budget ever that the LAPD has gotten. Since 2013, the LAPD budget has gone up by 69.78%, or 70% to round it off, and that's where the monies are going. $2.14 billion just operating costs, and then when you add all the other liabilities of pension and everything else, it's going to be close to almost $4 billion when you bring in, the federal grants, and when you bring in donations, and when you bring in fee for service, because it's a mercenary army, and that's what they do. And that's where it goes. And in that budget are these little things about, just having direct feed from all the cameras that are going to be installed around the city, direct feed to the real-time crime center. It reminds me, Mike Downing, who was the former head of LAPD's counterterrorism department back in 2010, was looking at and showed his BlackBerry and was speaking to a group of people on the rooftop at Standard Hotel, that my BlackBerry knows everything that moves within 452 square miles of this city. Now, that was 13 years ago that Mike Downing was making this commentary, and that's exactly what these real-time, crime centers are, and ACCICCs, and little fusion centers, and everything else that we know in between. So be ready for a much more, dragnet surveillance, facial recognition technology, and yada, yada, yada. And by the way, what happened to our letter about the SAR audit? We haven't received a response from the commission. We haven't heard any update. It's been a month since we sent a letter. The suspicious activity reporting program is supposed to be audited every year. The last audit we saw was from 2019. It's been 4 years, and we know that what kind of license to racially profile that is. We know that how it's predominantly black people who go into these secret files, and that has been the history. And we know that what kind of license to racially profile this is, because most of the reports, bulk of the reports come through see something, say something from rich white neighborhoods.
Thank you. We'll look into the SAR report audit. We will look into the SAR report audit and get back to you. Thank you.
The next speaker, please, Zach Sherwin.
When are you going to report back about that, Commissioner Suthers? Not willing to name a date or anything? I know, you guys can't speak to the public under any circumstances from the dais. I recently learned about a phenomenon called bike shedding. It's part of a concept of a law of triviality, and the professor who made it up envisions like a group of people who are tasked with something complex and important, like building a nuclear power plant. And because the task is too daunting and difficult, instead they get into fights about trivialities like what materials they're going to build the bike shed out of that people are going to ride to work in. It's a similar concept that's in effect at this board, except it's not that the task is too difficult for you guys to take on. It's that you have no interest in taking it on, and that you're stooges and puppets who are put here to prop up what he's doing. And so we get bogged down in the trivialities that we hear about at this meeting. It's bizarre that for the past 2 weeks, we've heard multiple mentions of the names Hyundai and Kia, and not any of the names of any of the tens of people the LAPD has shot and killed this year. Like, if you graphed the emphasis and the time devoted to those respective names, the contrast would be striking. So, it would be better if we lived in a world where perfume theft didn't happen. But hearing you talk about that and to hear about the brazenness of these crimes, how brazen were they, Chief? Were they really brazen? Super brazen? Not that brazen? When the cops have killed dozens of people this year, shot dozens of people, killed tens of people, it's just striking to watch you do some bizarre, fucked up version of bike shedding that I think betrays like a much more profound lack of humanity and ability to deliver on the job that you've been appointed to do. Not that any of us have any hope that you're going to provide any meaningful service in the role you're in. At the very least, we might expect the chief to address, or for any of you to ask about topics that rise to the notice of our city's paper of record, the LA Times. So this morning we had an article with the headline, "More Officers Allege Sexual Hazing on LAPD's Centurions Football Team." I bet some of the tons of officers in this room are on that team or tried out for it and didn't make it. Is a syllable breathed about it in this meeting? No, we don't hear anything. Instead, it's Hyundais and Kias and how brazen the smash and grabs are. This meeting being on Tuesday morning at 9:30 sucks, and walking into 6 officers at the front desk staring at you as you walk in the door is awful. Why do you do it this way? I scorn this board with the disdain of 10,000 suit guys when you hand them a comment card and they pass it off to one of the other flunkies in this room. Shame on you, and justice for Takar Smith.
Okay, we do have a caller on Zoom, caller ending in 1264. Caller ending in 1264, you're on. Okay, I guess he's not there. Okay, the next speaker will be Jamie Cusick.
Hello?
Oh, okay.
Hello?
Caller's there.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes. 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, Chief. On October 28th, they had an unpermitted event here at Mary Immaculate Church, Foothill Division, said that this was permitted. I was awoken at 2 a.m. by a live band from this event. They have the second day they closed off the street with their personal vehicles. This is not a permitted event. I requested a supervisor. A supervisor called me like 2 to 3 hours later. This is crazy. I mean, we have and this is an event that is for a statue that is very popular amongst gang members and drug traffickers, child molesters, child killers. I mean, this crosses the gamut. This is ridiculous. The police seem to be working with these people for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, this is ridiculous. I've filed a complaint with Internal Affairs. This is going to go across your desk. I have all the pictures here to show you when you, and they know who I am, Foothill Division, and you can actually contact me through them, and I will show you what has gone on there. I mean, it is terrible. I mean, it doesn't seem like you're working for the taxpayer, the homeowner, because this was in a residential area. The church does not pay property tax. Okay, so they should not be able to have this event. They would not show me a permit where this event when it was permitted, or nobody was allowed to make any kind of public comment. It is just, I don't know what's going on at the LAPD. I don't know what's going on at Foothill Division, but this is not right. Please, when you see this, please contact me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Jamie Cusick.
Chief Moore, all year we have been subjected to your reports. Week after week throughout 2023, you have sat in this room spewing racist venom and delighting in the violence of the little stories you bring up here about the so-called crimes committed in this city. For example, a few months ago, when you described every minute detail of a sexual assault, you summoned up language so gratuitous it would make Quentin Tarantino jealous, and your salacious glee, as you described it, was, even for someone who's used to the violent intent and impact of every word that comes out of your mouth, pretty fucking alarming. And yes, you are quite simply a sick piece of shit. But aside from your psychological state, Chief Moore, the fact is that you are financially and professionally motivated to delight not only in talking about rape, but to delight in the fact that it occurs in Los Angeles, within a city that is, according to the fucking wall over there, under your protection. The shittier your officers do their job, the more money you can demand to continue what is nothing more or less than your anti-Black crusade to keep people of color and unhoused Angelenos surveilled, in prison, or dead. Chief Moore, I'm a white, cishet, upper-class woman. I look like 99% of Law & Order's SVU victims. I look like and am exactly who you think that you're protecting. You know what your officers do for me? You know what they protect me from? Nothing. All you do is waste $8 million of my tax money every single day and more if you get your wish regarding this proposed budget increase. You don't keep us safe, we keep us safe. The number of the people in this room at this absurd hour of the day who are losing wages and time with their families on a holiday week in order to protest your proposed budget increase proves how fucking evil your regime is. And as you scheme to increase LAPD surveillance and weaponry and manpower, I hope you realize this, Chief Moore. Your days as the head of the most murderous police department in the world are numbered. Community solidarity cannot be subdued. From here to Atlanta, where it grows increasingly clear every day that Cop City will never be built. And the fact that I was not speaking here last November, and yet that I'm here today, is proof that the movement for abolition, which is a movement for peace and abundance that is all too attainable, cannot be stopped. I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. The next speaker, Michelle Dumont.
Okay, this is so, disgusting. Where to start? Report on law enforcement agencies a grant for de-escalation. When has the LAPD ever used de-escalation techniques? Ever? Never. They kill people who are just holding small knives. They kill people who are suffering mental breakdowns. And I hope you listened really carefully to Paula Miner today, you people. Because if you don't find those cops out of policy, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. We have a housing emergency, right? Aren't you supposed to be in charge of this? And we have a housing emergency, and yet we are giving more money to the police to do their horrible stuff. And by the way, I have zero sympathy for your cops who were injured today in a crash. They shouldn't be doing those chases. And I have more sympathy for the hundreds of people over the years who have been killed by the LAPD or severely injured because of those car chases. And you never talk about them. Never. So bringing your cops' concerns to us rings so false. Another $100 million is coming to you, right? Or not 100 million, 100,000 for parties. Again, sucking the money out of the community. All you want to do is suck the money out. You don't want to give anything back. You don't want to participate. I was in a hit-and-run accident, called the LAPD, which was like 4 blocks away. Nobody even showed up. And it was a hit-and-run. The guy went off. We found him because other citizens reported to me his license plate. We found him, and nothing happened to that man to do a hit-and-run. Nothing. I filed a police report. Nothing happened. This is, when you're talking about not being protected, you don't do anything for us as citizens. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it just gets worse and worse with all of the money. By the way, I'm going to start taping over my license plate. I don't want you people following me around and knowing where I am every day. All this is about surveilling people, not like me, but people of color, and then targeting them in the ways you want to target them. It's not about solving crime. It's not about stopping police chases.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
The next speaker, Audrey George.
First, I want to talk about SARS. We can't know the untold harm that program is causing because it hasn't been audited. 4 years delay in that audit. I get sick to my stomach every time I'm on the train and they talk about see something, say something, turn on your neighbor, don't rely on your communities for help. Narc those people, get them into the system, get them in trouble. I want to know, in case people don't know about the standard for SARS, you can be in trouble, entered into the criminal system for having a pre-operational intent or looking like you have a pre-operational intent. So when I say fuck the police, is that pre-operational? Are you going to arrest me for that? When I say that there's no way that the LAPD should be getting a budget increase, 12%, and they should be defund the LAPD, is that pre-operational intent to commit a crime? When I say that you murdered Takar Smith, and that this is just one of so many times when, I always complain about when you kill people chasing them as suspects because they will never get a day in court. Takar Smith wasn't even a suspect. Everybody around him knew he had schizophrenia, diagnosed schizophrenia, and those cops murdered him out of policy. Every time I decry the fact that you surveil us worse than Google does, worse than any social media does, that you surveil us and harm us through that surveillance, is that pre-operational intent to commit a crime? Every time I complain about how you go to Israel to train your LAPD, and look how well they're doing in Gaza, they're doing just what they're told. There's no such thing as de-escalation when you talk about the Israel Defense Forces, and yet you use them to train, and then you say your forces are being trained to de-escalate. Bullshit. Sorry if that's pre-operational intent to commit a crime. Every time I complain about how you kill people with mental health issues with nothing but a kitchen knife so often, or something that you think might be a gun, like a cell phone, maybe it is pre-operational intent to commit a crime.
We have a Zoom caller, Josie. Josie, are you there? Josie?
Yes.
Okay. What items would you like to speak on?
All of them?
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, all. I just want to say that by working in my community with LAPD, especially my officer, our community is almost zero crime. Actually, no, 5% crime. He has been so effective meeting with everybody in the community. It's incredible. We have been able to do neighborhood watches day and night. The businesses in our area are not suffering the attacks they were in the past. Oh, sorry, my slow officer. And I just want to say, I asked in the Community Advisory Board LAPD meeting, how can we let our captain and our watch commanders and all LAPD, the higher ups, know how well we're doing? And they said, well, you're doing it already. You're communicating with your slow, which is he's hands-on. He reports everything to his captain, sergeant, captain, and everybody else. I just want to say thank you, LAPD. I am support 100% to LAPD, and you guys are doing a great job in my community. And I want to ask everybody that have problems or that has problems with anyone else, if you join your LAPD group or you're slow, talk to them. I think they can help you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Tenacity.
Y'all fam, I'm just here another week looking at the sign saying to protect and serve. I hope you have it in the budget to add protect and serve us from yourselves. This is absolutely insane. The decision, the policy ruling that is ultra obvious that it is out of policy for Takar Smith to be murdered got continued. I want to speculate as to why. Did y'all get together? Somebody had a conscience, and one of y'all was like, no. And y'all are just stalling us out, thinking that we're going to forget so that you can make an in-policy ruling? What is the problem? It was obvious with Keena Anderson. It was obvious with Gashario Mack. It's been obvious with so many people that you have murdered. What's up with the stalling? We don't play games with you all. Don't play games with us. In addition, you make a report stating that crime is down yet again, but you want more money? You have pilfered the public purse, as we say, for far too long. We have so many other things that are happening. We have so many unhoused people.
Hold the microphone. You're causing a lot of feedback. Thank you.
Is that in the budget to fix? My God. Y'all worry about the wrong things all the damn time. And it's just so infuriating how you insult our intelligence, you look at us smugly. This entire board, this entire institution must fall. Justice for Takar Smith. Fuck you. I yield my time.
The next speaker, Adam Smith.
Morning. Looking good, Mark Smith. One thing that happens from year to year is that we see different donations from the LA Police Foundation that number in the millions of dollars in various equipment, technologies, weapons, and salaries, including pilot program for drones, body cam pilot program, and the pilot programs that launched and expanded the Community Safety Partnership, among many other various weapons and technologies. On the reports attached to these donations on the Police Commission agenda, it says, and I quote, the Los Angeles Police Foundation is an independent, not-for-profit organization that provides critical resources and vital support to the LAPD, from essential equipment and state-of-the-art technology to specialized training in innovative programs that would otherwise be unfunded. You listening, Rasha? Great. The foundation provides funding that directly improves public safety, impacts officer readiness, and enhances the quality of life for all members of the community. Notably, between December 2020 and January 2021, this language in the weekly reports attached to these donations changed, where up until December 2020 included language that said, and I quote, there are no potential factors that may give the appearance of a conflict of interest in accepting this donation. No expressed or implied commitments or promises were made to the donor or representative of the donor. Wonder why that language was taken out, Russia. Anyway, I belabor these donations because not only are they almost exclusively accepted via consent agenda item with no discussion or questions by this commission, Lou Calanche, where there are no questions by commissioners about who are the real estate interests, multinational private equity firms, and Wall Street banking institutions, etc., donating millions of dollars to the LAPD every year. Bringing this back to the budget being proposed today. Last year, this commission used their mistype. Last year, this commission used their fucking Adam, right? This commission used their Made to Feel Important Police Foundation stooge, Steve Soberoff, to facilitate funding for a rent subsidization program for new LAPD recruits. In a city where 40,000 people live outside, where 6 unhoused people die every day, and are targeted by LAPD violence, I should say, that this program to assist LAPD officers in finding more affordable rent is egregious enough. We see that this program, originally funded by donations, being rolled into a permanent line item in this year's proposed budget. Just like the drones were, just like the body cams were, just like Community Safety Partnership was. That is egregious. That is the egregious nature and purpose of these donations, just another way for the LAPD to expand their budget and to use the violent farce of civilian oversight in this room to do so. I don't know which of you might have a soul still, but I do hope you feel ashamed.
The next speaker, Melina Abdullah.
Dr. Abdullah will be the last speaker.
Let everybody speak, yo. Our people's mayor is also on Zoom.
Fire, Chief Moore.
Dr. Abdullah, you're the next speaker.
The next speaker. There will be more speakers after her.
So I want to, I want to note that I was one of the last ones to put in a card. So for me to go ahead if everyone else seems like there's something that's not in line. I want to lift up where we are in this world and just encourage all of us to think about a world that has us dehumanizing people or resisting the institutions that dehumanize. If we think about what's happening in the world, if we think about 19,000 Palestinian people killed so far by the Israeli government, if we think about the fact that tens of thousands more will die in the aftermath, if we think about that millions of people are being displaced right now, we're talking about a pattern of dehumanization. A pattern of dehumanization that's not confined to occupied Palestine, but we also see right here in Los Angeles. We know that there is information that says, at least as far back as Daryl Gates, you all as LAPD have been cooperating and conspiring with the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. We know that that has filtered into who you are as LAPD. We know that this pattern of dehumanization has also been adopted by the LA Police Commission, which is supposed to be the people's oversight body. When we walk in this room on a Tuesday morning, on a week when we're supposed to be on vacation, when kids are home from school and we want to be with them, we got to be here because it's our sacred duty to fight for justice in the names of our people. But that's a dehumanizing practice. It's a dehumanizing practice to say, arbitrarily, people can't bring water into the meeting. It's a dehumanizing practice to be surrounded by dozens of cops. It's a dehumanizing practice to be told this person gets to speak and those don't. It's a dehumanizing practice to say, yes, you took time out of your day, but you don't get to say anything. I want to uplift that we also see other parallels. This country spends $4 billion a year to send weapons to Israel. It's almost the exact same amount the LAPD is requesting in its budget. I also want to say these dehumanizing practices are most dehumanizing to those who are directly impacted by LAPD budget and lift the name of Takar Smith. I want to remind you that last week his family was here, but they have to work. They can't keep coming back. It's dehumanizing for your family liaison not even to bother to reach out to them for 2 fucking days We had to tell them that you somehow continue the decision.
Dr. Abdullah, thank
So
you very
I
much.
want you to remember that you have a choice to either dehumanize or to resist,
Thank you,
to
Dr.
step into who you are charged with being by both this body, by both the city charter, and by our God, by our Creator, by our ancestors.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah.
And fire Chief Moore.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. We will now move on to agenda item number 3, consent agenda items. You are disrupting the meeting. You are disrupting the meeting. This is your first and only warning. You are disrupting the meeting. We are moving on to agenda item number 3, consent agenda items. Sergeant at Arms, please clear the room. You may leave. The commission will now recess while we clear the room. Pursuant to California Government Code 54957.9. Okay, the meeting will resume. We will now start with agenda item number 3, consent agenda items. We have agenda items A, B, and C today. And are there any comments, questions on those items? I have some questions on item 3A. Any questions on B or C?
No question.
No questions? So I would make a motion that we approve the item B, Department's report relative to the selected inmate telephone service and remote video visitation system contractor. We approve the department's report. Is there a second?
There's a second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item agenda 3C, department's report. I would move that we approve the department's report and accept the donations. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we'll go back to item agenda 3A. The report on the law enforcement agency de-escalation grant, community policing development program is set forth. And do we have people scheduled to respond to that? I don't have them on my agenda.
Yes, I'm trying to get him on Zoom, sir.
Have the,
Here we go.
name of the agenda.
I believe Captain Medell?
Yes,
Oh, thank you, sir.
thank you.
So I have a couple of questions on this agenda item. The first one is, are you able to say who the faculty for this course of study that's going to be delivered on de-escalation? Do we know who these folks are? Are these post people? Are they department people? Who exactly are they?
The cadre would be our current SWAT CNT cadre, which is approximately 18 instructors that are dedicated to teaching this subject.
Okay, thank you. And I notice the other question I have is on page 5, it said there will be 2 evaluations. The first one is on training performance, and the second is on program effectiveness. I just want to know, what metrics are we using to determine whether this program is effective, A, and B, is there a proof of concept that we're working off of to determine whether or not we're meeting that level of effectiveness?
I'm hoping that I can get Lieutenant Lopez, who's this is a second iteration of this instruction, and we use the same measures of effectiveness. So I'm hoping that he's on to be able to elaborate on this. Lieutenant Lopez? Okay.
And if not, I'd welcome you to come back. I'm just curious about how we're determining effectiveness, whether we're meeting that threshold and what it looks like.
Yes, I can get that to you. Yeah, like I spoke to him briefly before this call, and it's actually the same measures of effectiveness and tools that we used for the last iteration of the program.
Okay, thank you, Captain.
No problem.
Any other commissioners with questions? Commissioner Kalanche?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I recognize that the title also includes community policing development. So I'm wondering what aspect of the training is focused on community policing, or is it just a general term that is being used?
It's a general term that's being used, but the curriculum for this, although this is a second iteration of a similar CNT for patrol officers course, the curriculum has not been fully established. So this new curriculum, they are going to integrate some specifics into the course, the 8-hour course.
Specifics of community policing principles, or?
Community policing principles as it relates to the current iteration of the crisis negotiation strategies.
Could we get a copy when the curriculum's completed
Definitely.
on the community policing principle? I'm curious to see what we're using. And
Definitely, the cadre from the SWAT CNT is going to engage with the community to integrate some of those elements into this new curriculum.
I would love to see it.
Definitely.
Thank you. Commissioner Briggs?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Shields?
Yes, one quick question. I'd like to commend you for identifying and requesting this grant for this good purpose. Who is generally responsible for identifying other kind of federal and state grant opportunities and applying for them? Because I think this is a great, use of the federal funds for de-escalation purposes.
In terms of department-wide, I know we have an entity within the department that deals specifically with grants. Beyond that, I don't know the specifics of how they do that.
And Chief Choi, can you perhaps address this?
Absolutely. So anyone in the department can identify grants and apply for them. However, the grants section out of the Office of Constitutional Policing and Policy has a couple of people that are scouring grants, and we have federal liaisons that we work with. And any opportunities to apply for grants that come up are brought to our attention. Those grants from grants section are given to the responsible commanding officers or bureaus or directors to say if we're interested in applying for them. And then the grant sections will help us facilitate that application to apply for those grants.
Thank you, Chief. That's great to hear that it's a concerted effort to actually identify these opportunities. Thank you.
Seeing as there are no additional comments or questions, I would move that we approve the department's report and transmit to the mayor and city council. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carried.
And Commissioners, if I could,
Sure.
I'm going to ask, or I'm actually going to work with Deputy Chief Kowalski and CTSOB and Metro. Captain Medell is new to his assignment. This grant was a continuation from Captain Bixler and Lieutenant Lopez. So there are, as I'm going through the grant package, there's a number of information elements in here that that addresses some of your questions. So I think, in fairness to you, I'd like to suggest that we'll have them come and brief you verbally to update you on how this grant is actually going to be done and measured and accomplished, including development of roll call videos, as well as evaluation tools and the community engagement aspect of it as well.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item number 4, regular agenda items. The first is the department's verbal presentation and discussion relative to the status of the legacy computer systems. And we have a number of folks here. Commander Goddard.
Good morning and happy Thanksgiving week. I'm going to do a
Commander,
quick,
before you get started, can you introduce who's present with you?
I was going to do a quick introduction of myself, and then I was going to have
Okay,
Monique Turner do an introduction because she can do it quite eloquently.
Great.
My name is Randy Goddard. I'm a commander here with LAPD Information Technology Bureau. And I've been asked to come today to provide a verbal presentation at a high-level overview on the status of the department's legacy computer systems. I've been assigned to the Information Technology Bureau for about 3 years. And prior to that assignment, I really didn't know much about technology other than I expected it to work, as I'm sure all of you do. What I have learned, though, is over the last 3 years, how important technology is to this department, how technology touches every aspect of department operations. And it's becoming even more critical as we are losing human resources with our civilian ranks and our sworn ranks to leverage this technology to bring efficiencies and release some time for those human resources. I'm going to talk about an effort that has really been...
Commander, at this moment, could we introduce Monique?
Yes.
Please.
All right.
Good morning. My name is Monique Turner. I'm the Information Systems Manager and Commanding Officer for the Application Development and Support Division. Application Development Support Division manages all enterprise-level development and support of investigative, risk, and human resource-related applications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I brought Ms. Turner along for the technical answers that you may have that I may not be able to answer. So we have been on this endeavor for approximately 10 years to replace our legacy systems. And it just hasn't come to be. However, in the last year, it's finally becoming a reality. And we're going to be replacing those legacy systems with our new records management system, which will be the most significant and transformative technology project in the department's 150-year history. We have a PowerPoint, which you have up here. I could do it in two ways, Mr. President. There's 3 slides. I can go over slide by slide, and you can ask any questions after each slide, or if you'd like to wait till the very end to ask questions, it's completely up to you.
The consensus is we'll wait till the end.
No problem. So if we could, next slide, please.
This is not working.
Are we able to change the slide on the computer?
Yeah.
This shows why we need new technology, right?
There we are. So I'd like to start in giving you a history of where the department has been and where we are currently with our legacy systems. For the purpose of this presentation, legacy systems are applications on our mainframe that are end of life and no longer supported. Right now, our mainframe is obviously very difficult to maintain, incredibly expensive to maintain it. Our legacy applications are housed on that mainframe. These are custom applications that Information Technology Agency, or ITA, which is the city technology agency, developed over 30 years ago. They are custom applications, like I said. Currently, there is no support within the city to modify or fix any of these applications if they were to fail. All of the personnel that maintained it, developed it, has since retired. Most of them retired in 2020 with the city's early retirement incentive program. So it was a very quick, overnight type of a situation that we ran into with losing all that support. I'd like to look at that photo on the left side there of the IBM computer. And on the monitor, it has an application. Well, obviously that computer, when I came on the job in the 90s, we called that a terminal. Those are since long gone. We obviously have much more recent technology when it comes to our computer systems. But that application you see there is something that we still use currently today. So that kind of gives you a visualization of how old these applications that we're going to be talking about are. On the right side, you'll see that there's 7 legacy mainframe applications. I like to discuss each of those just so you get a sense of what they are and what they do. Our first one is the Network Communications System. We call it NEX. This is our switch that gives us the ability to connect with federal, state, and county databases. So this is our ability to get our criminal histories, to get warrants, to get missing persons, property, dozens of these type of queries that we do through federal, state, and county databases. The next one is Consolidated Crime Analysis Database, or we call CCAD. This is where we put all of our crime and arrest information. This is where we buy department report numbers. This is how we do crime analysis. This is how we do crime stat inspections. A very, very important system to be able to track crime, get DR numbers, and close that crime out. The next one is Detective Case Tracking System, which is DCTS. This gives detectives the ability to monitor cases, put case notes in, close out their cases for prosecution. This also connects to our CCAD system. Next one is Automated Property Information System, or APIMS. This is our tracking system for all of our evidence, property, whether it be for evidentiary purposes, found property, money, narcotics. All that evidence gets put into the system and managed. Next one is Decentralized Automated Booking Information System. This gives us the ability to buy a booking number from the county sheriffs and be able to book individuals into the county system. Number 6 is our Department Employee Accommodation System, also known as DEX. This is where all the accommodations for employees are essentially entered into the system with the date, the type of accommodation, and a brief one-sentence description. And finally, Firearms Management Information System, which is FAMIS. Now, the first 5 of these applications are the critical ones. The last 2 are not. I'm going to talk about those on the next slide. Next slide, please. So where are we going? Where we're going is a modern mobility first model initiative with our records management system. RMS is the solution to get off the mainframe, and RMS replaces 5 of the critical mainframe applications that I just described on the previous slide, which remains 2 out of those, which is the DEX and FAMIS. FAMIS is being decommissioned, and we're working on a plan to replace DEX. The 5 critical mainframe applications, like I said, will be removed by July 1st, 2024, and they will become archive databases. Records management system will begin its rollout in February of 2024. What we're going to do is a bureau by bureau rollout. We're going to start in Operations Central Bureau, moving to Operations West Bureau, then to Operations South Bureau, and finally to Operations Valley Bureau, while also including all of the specialized divisions and entities that use our current system. DEX, which will be the last mainframe system that we'll need to replace. We're working on a plan through Monique's shop to get a replacement, and that will be replaced by the end of 2024. So that's our legacy systems. I like to talk a little bit more about RMS, and it's much more than something that's replacing our legacy systems. It does much more. If you think about right now how things are done, an officer responds to a crime, they pull out a piece of paper, they do that crime report. All that takes time to fill out the crime report, and then there's multiple reports that they have to fill out on top of that crime report and entering the same information over and over on all of these reports. All of those papers are then given to our area records unit, and that area records unit then spends time doing data entry into these legacy systems. Then when they're done with that data entry, then they proceed to make dozens of copies and put them in dozens of boxes and file them away and put the original down the records and identification down here, and then that gets scanned into the system. So all of that is very, very labor intensive. It takes a lot of human hours to do that. All of that is going away. This system is going to be a paperless system. It's a system that an officer is going to be able to use their issued iPhone Pro Max out in the field to get the information they need from the victim or the suspect or the witness, enter it in their iPhone. They can also
Excuse me, Commander. Sir, you're welcome to sit and quietly listen to the presentation. Public comment has concluded. If you'd like to stay, be quiet. Commander, please continue.
So like I was saying, it gives the officers the ability of mobility, and that's what we're really shooting for in the future of the LAPD is mobility and not having officers having to spend so much of their shift in the station. at a desktop. It's being able to create an environment in the field where everything they can do is on their smartphone device or on their MDC, their mobile digital computer. So this is going to bring a lot of efficiencies, also reduce a lot of time, also bring to the fingertips of the officer the ability to do searches on their cell phone for individuals and auto-populate that information into the reports. They're also able to take what's intaked via 911. When somebody calls 911 on our dispatchers, put that information into our computer-aided dispatch system. It's able to take that information and move it over into their case report, further making more efficiencies on time, not having to re-enter that information. The last thing I want to talk about, which is the last bullet on this, is what we're calling NIBRS Cybers, which stands for National Incident-Based Reporting System. And obviously, California always has to be California. They have their own California Incident-Based Reporting System. What this is the FBI's new reporting system for crime statistics. They were previously on a uniform crime reporting summary reporting system, which is the UCR SRS. That was decommissioned in 2020, and the FBI has this new model for ingesting crime, which is the NIBRS Cybers model. This is based on offenses and the incidents rather than a hierarchy rule where we'd only count one crime per incident based upon the hierarchy of that crime. This is another thing that the RMS will bring as a reality because we haven't got there yet. We haven't got in compliance with, but the RMS system will allow us to get in compliance and allow us to get certified in the state of California to submit this data to Cal DOJ, who then in turn submits it to the FBI. The hopes is we will be in that certification process once the system is fully deployed, which will be the end of June. So therefore, we'll start the certification in July of 2024. It's a 3-month certification process, and at that point, with less than 3% error rate, we will be in compliance. Next slide. I'd like to give you a visualization of what I've just explained on how it works. As you can see, starting with number 1, officers are going to be able to take incident reports. They're going to be able to do field interview cards. They're going to be able to do citations, all from the palm of their hand using their iPhone Pro Max. Everything's digital. There is no paper. So once they're completed and the system validates their entries, it's submitted to a watch commander for review. Watch commander digitally reviews it, accepts it, approves it. It then goes to detectives to be assigned to detectives for investigation. And finally, number 4 represents CompStat, our new model of the NIBRS and Cybers, which will change the way we do CompStat inspections because there'll be a different way of looking at the crime. That kind of gives you a visualization of how that works. And next slide, please. And in closing, since 2021, Information Technology Bureau has dramatically updated the department's technology infrastructure using a mobility-first strategy to put the department in a position to modernize our RMS and move us off the mainframe. We've migrated to iPhones. We've now deployed iPhones to every patrol uniform officer. We're developing iOS applications, and we're trying to move in the direction of the city's overall plan, and that's become cloud-based. We deployed LTE broadband in the fleet, so every one of our black and whites has LTE broadband modem in those to bring the mobility to the police cars and have this functionality. We've upgraded our 911 computer-aided dispatch system. We've implemented our automated license plate recognition program. We've upgraded our digital in-car video system to an industry-leading system that is cloud-based. And lastly, I would be remiss if I did not thank all of our civilian IT professionals, like Monique Turner, who keep the organization's technology functioning. Huge thanks to our RMS team that has worked extremely hard. And a final huge thanks to our vendor, Motorola Solutions, who we've been working with, who've devoted a lot of resources towards this project to accomplish a very, very aggressive timeline. For all intents and purposes, we've started this progress in March of this year, and we're going to be launching in less than a year. That is a very aggressive timeline, so I wanted to give thanks to them for that, and I will open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Commander. And again, excellent report. I'm going to start with Vice President Shields for any questions or comments.
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of testing out the app, and it is very intuitive. So good job with developing something that everyone can use. How is the department going to be handling citations and other types of receipts to the citizens if we're paperless? And can you just talk about how the citizens can expect this interaction and even those who may not have access to technology?
Good question, and thank you for participating in the exercise. So we'll always have a fallback when it comes to citations. We will have portable printers that will be able to print the citation and give that citation to the community member at the time of the issuance. However, we're really trying to move in a direction where we don't have to do that. So there's a couple solutions that we have. One, we're able to email that citation and the Marcy's Law and some of the things that we give for crime reports directly to the individual there while we're at scene. Text message it, QR code it. Also, we're developing a portal with the vendor where if for some reason, maybe they lost the email, they lost the text message, they don't have it anymore, they could go on this portal, they can enter some information that's consistent with what they would do right now with a paper form that they would send the R&I to get a copy of the report. Same type of information, but now on a website, they confirm their identity, who they are, and they can access their incident number and their citation and those type of things on this portal. So there's multiple ways of doing it. Ideally, we're trying to stay away from the paper as the last resort.
Thank you. Commissioner Briggs.
Thank you, President Suthers. I have a couple of questions for either Commander Goddard or Ms. Turner. First, let's start with, you mentioned the fact that there's going to be archiving of everything that was on the mainframe. Is it going to be archived to a cloud-based system?
Yes, so our goal is to archive that information to our Azure cloud, which is a government cloud run by Microsoft. It's kind of a cold, warm storage where we'll be able to still point to that data and use that data when needed. But as far as production and writing to that data, that will ultimately cease.
And
Commissioner Briggs, Ms. Turner, can you talk about the migration from the mainframe? Just the timing on this. It's not turn of a switch. When you archive that data, we're gonna be maintaining some server farms for a while. Is that correct?
Yes. So in terms of the data migration, specifically for CCAD and for APUMS, it will be a complete data migration into the new system, and so that new system will contain the data. For CCAD, we are migrating that off the mainframe, and we'll have a replica copy of that for any type of data searches and or reporting. We are working on a parallel program of creating an archival data lake where all this archival data will be there for the purposes of queries.
what kind of assurance is Microsoft providing us with respect to security? Meaning, is the data going to be encrypted? Is the encryption of the data going to be such that they're not going to be able to be hacked, such that, everything is hacked nowadays? I want to know what the security is going to be of this data, because it's not generally available to the public, is my understanding. So how is Microsoft going to assure us that this data that they are now going to take possession of is going to be secure?
So I'll give you the higher, and then she can get in the weeds. So the Microsoft Azure Government Cloud is a criminal justice information system, CJIS compliant cloud. So it does meet the FBI's highest standards for security. So we're in compliance with the FBI's security standards. We're constantly in talks with Microsoft about how we can be more resilient, not just with these type of databases, but in general overall. We're trying to bring down our security score, Chief, every day, and we're working on that, but I'll let you get in any weeds of that answer.
I think just with any of our technologies that we have, we ensure that all the security measures and our security posture stands are intact. Whether it's an on-prem solution, we have the firewalls set forth. the same type of security methods will be available and are available in our government cloud today.
So speak to me about the security of the devices themselves that the officers will be using out in the field. What security parameters will be around them other than just password?
So from the MDCs, which are the mobile devices in the vehicles and the handhelds, there are security measures that are installed in the on both devices. So for the handheld, in the event that it is lost or stolen, we do have the means of being able to lock that device immediately, so that if someone else were to pick it up, there's no way that they could log into our system in order to get any type of CJI data. From a login perspective, we also have multi-factor identification. So you need two forms of login in order to get into our system. So those checks and balances will be there on any device that we have.
I think we just double check. You may have answered the questions. I think that's it, Commissioner President Suthers. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kalanche?
Thank you. Couple of questions. So since we're going paperless, what are the implications for, say, not having access to data in case there's a outage or data's not available, we don't have any backup? How do we handle those situations?
So from the high level, we do have a disaster recovery plan where there's multiple servers at different locations within the city that back up and sync so that we always will have 2 copies of the information.
Okay.
There is features within the applications if the internet or the cellular device were to go down, you could still input that information into the devices, and once service is restored, it will automatically upload to the cloud and back to all the devices. So those are some of the disaster recovery things that we have to ensure that if there is network capability where internet goes down or cellular service goes down, we still have the ability to move forward with the operations of the department.
I think somebody was.
We will also so what we do today, and when we have our outages, whether it's a standard outage, we do have the ability to buy cases, manual DR numbers. So we do have the ability to still manage to create reports and to buy booking numbers. And so that same process would be available when we move into a paperless route.
And excuse me, Commissioners, just let me add to that. John McMahon, Chief of Technology. I was fortunate to just come back from a debriefing with the Dallas Police Department. And Dallas has had an RMS and been paperless since 2014. They just recently experienced a ransomware attack. And one of the largest lessons we took away from that is being that they were on the RMS and paperless for so many years, it was really devastating to the city of Dallas and the Dallas Police Department. But because of their ingenuity and their ability to respond, they quickly developed a paper system to go back to. So one of the things that I took away from that trip is to make sure as part of our critical disaster recovery plan is to maintain a paper-based system ready to go. One of the things that we're going to do is make sure that every paper form is completely archived and put in a safe, ready to distribute to all 25 of our response divisions. So in the event of a type of attack that would disable us to that degree, we would have an immediate paper system that we can revert back to. No matter how far we go, any critical attack can devastate an organization of any size. The ability for us to go back and revert to paper, fortunately for the next few years is not going to be so terribly difficult for LAPD because we've been on paper, but as we move farther along during the digitization and modernization process, our ability to revert to paper is something that can never be lost, and that was one of the things we took away.
Mind if I follow up with this question, because this is kind of interesting to me for a variety of reasons. Are you, Commander Goddard, are you saying that, or Ms. Turner, are you saying that when the mobile device, when an officer enters details in a mobile device itself, does that instantly go to the cloud? Or is there a sync later during the day? So that, to Commissioner Kalanche's point of lost data, should something happen, you know, that the devices go out and we don't have any data, would the data be still on the device itself, or would it be in the cloud? So I'm just trying to get an understanding. Is it synced, you know, routinely, constantly, or is it only at the end of the day? I mean, I have an iPhone. It, you know, syncs basically in the evening, right? Something like that. Or so. How is this going to happen so that we're sure that the scenario that Commissioner Kalanche gave you, we're not going to lose any of this data?
So the application will always be synced to the main application. So whether it's on the phone, it will always be synced to the database. So there will be immediate updates that's happening to the database at any given time. There is the ability for the data to be cached on the phone in the events, or on the mobile device in the events where there is no connectivity, or if there is an outage. So the phone will have the capability of having that information and could be synced at a later point.
Thank you.
Synced immediately, right? Just to clarify.
Well, yes. So there is a constant connectivity to the application itself. Anything that's entered on the system will be automatically updated to the application. Except for those times when there is an outage or if there's any type of connectivity issue.
So as you're typing into your phone, you're actually typing into the database.
Once you hit the commit button, then it syncs to the database, yes.
Okay.
And to your point, to Commissioner Briggs, it kind of gives you that Apple feeling when you're doing something on one device, it's automatically prepared on the other device. So when the officer starts it on their iPhone, they could go to the MDC, they go to the desktop computer, and it's exactly where they left off, so they can do their narrative back at the station, wherever that may be.
Okay. About the rollout, you mentioned the rollout is by bureau. What are the implications? I know that's just more practical, but what are the implications of having some bureaus on this system and then the other bureaus still on the paper system? Are there any implications or things that we need to be cautious about
I think the biggest hurdle when you look at an agency our size in the city is when we go bureau by bureau. One bureau is going to be on this new model of NIBR Cybers, and the other bureaus are catching up. They're still on the UCR SRS. So there is a tool that allows us to take NIBR's data and filter that down to the old SRS so that we can do apples to apples comparisons. And then once the entire city's on board, then we'll all be on that NIBR sync. But that's probably the largest challenge initially is doing that apples to apples comparison for bureaus that are still on the old UCR SRS compared to the new bureau on the NIBRs.
But make no mistake about it, 2024 is going to be a big, big year for transition, both in the what this team is doing in regards to development of technology and the implementation, the hardware, the systemware, but training for our personnel who are going to now have a much more a questioning system, much more expansive under the National Incident-Based Reporting. They're no longer just reporting a robbery. They may be reporting a robbery, a kidnap, a criminal threat, and all that information that the current system, while the officers will narrate it, it only takes the most hierarchical, the highest crime. The new system, you can have multiple crimes to each individual victim. The role of the victim also will be much more expansive, much more questioning about relationships with the victim and the suspect, relationships, background of the victim, same with suspects, same with the premise. It's a much, much deeper system. Most agencies across America that have gone to this have had challenges in regards to the burden that we place on officers. What this team is doing well is that they've worked with Motorola, who's the provider of this, and they're working just as Commissioner Shields saw. It'll prompt you to go through those. But no matter the prompting and the training, I do see in 2024, we're going to have a substantial challenge in regards to opportunities for training, development, and we'll have to take this a step at a time. But there's a great deal of planning and efforts on the front end, but 2024 is going to be a transition year that will challenge this organization. The benefit of this will be improved efficiencies and much more clarity as to the nature of crime and those individuals that are responsible or contributing to it, and other factors as well.
So in relation to the crime and the hierarchy of reporting, from my understanding, DOJ is only taking the top crime, right? Or is it the opposite?
No, the DOJ when you say DOJ, there's a California Department of Justice, and then there's a National Department of Justice. The National Department of Justice has had these two standards for 30 years. They've had Uniform Crime Reporting Standards, which dates back to the 1930s, and then they brought on in 1989, they brought on National Incident-Based Reporting Standards. Just law enforcement across America has been reticent to adopt it because the technology, and really it hasn't always seen the immediate benefit given the added burden. One of the challenges they're going to have is, as we embark on this, is we want to pick up time efficiencies. Yet if the nature of the questions are such that the level of detail that we get into takes an interview from a half hour to an hour, then we need to clearly look at and see what benefits we're getting from this. So it's going to be a year of exploring, of understanding. I do appreciate and welcome the team has traveled to other agencies and other cities that have national incident-based reporting standards. San Diego is a perfect example. They've had this for decades. But when I talk to chief officers, they talk about that it's shifting, does shift, raises expectations on the part of the level of competencies and training that the officers need in order to be compliant. I just want to push a warning sign up there. Is that fair?
Yeah, and Chief, the example that you've given with the murder, the rape, you have a murder, you have a rape, a burglary. Traditionally, the murder would get counted, and the other lesser crimes would not necessarily get counted. Under NIBRS, those will be counted. So there will be a difference in some of the numbers that will be. The department will be in a good position to explain moving forward, but there will be a slight adjustment in terms of that example.
And if I may, really quick, just to add on to Chief Moore, he made a couple of great points to bring some clarity. So there is another challenge, which is the human change element of this. The way we're doing business is going to change dramatically, right? Not going from paper to electronic device, but then bringing in NIBRS and the information that needs to be requested. So our team has created a program called the Ambassador Program, and there's over 350 ambassadors within the department that are getting trained first, that are going to be experts on the system, that are then going to be at their commands, training all the personnel at their commands with our SMEs, and will be there and remain there. So as questions come up, there's somebody there that can answer that really quickly without somebody have to pick up a phone and say, hey, how do I do this? How do I submit this? So I think that will help us in this change. But human beings don't like change. So it is going to be a big lift, and 2024 is going to be significant, but I believe we're up for the challenge and we're going to get through it. I'm not the best IT professional, but that is my strength when it comes to delivering messages and the human change element of it. We'll get there.
President Southers, may I have just one more question? So I noticed on one of the charts where you actually demonstrate, and I'll just hold it up, where you demonstrate how this is going to work. You have items 1, 2, 3, and 4, the citation and the supervisor review, and then detectives investigate for CompStat. Has the department given consideration in step number 2 to deploying civilians for that review rather than supervisors? Because as I understand it, supervisors are sworn officers. We're in short supply of sworn officers, but I think we can hire civilians to perhaps review data, because that's what this is. It's data review and compliance, make sure there's compliance so we can train them up. And it might be cheaper for us to have civilians in that position and free up sworn officers. I'm just opening that up for consideration with the department, because right now we have a sworn officer shortage, and this might be one way of freeing up sworn officers or supervisors.
Commissioner, I'll take that question. One of the lessons that this department learned in the last consent decree was the vital importance of supervisory review of officers' crime reports, making sure that officers had the needed expertise to make sure that the proper elements of a crime are documented in the crime report, but also to have an awareness of the types of crimes and reports the officers are taking. How are they developing probable cause? Those important little elements that you cannot delegate to a civilian. It requires sworn supervision to maintain an awareness what the sworn officer are doing to make sure that they're documenting arrests that are proper, legal, in accordance with department policies and procedures. That's a supervisory responsibility that cannot be delegated.
I would add, and exactly agree with Chief McMahon. However, we have civilianized our crime analysis function. So over the last 30 years, there is an entire field of study that through higher education and then development of crime analysts, crime intelligence analysts, that then screen these reports, analyze, conducts their evaluation. So there's a civilian component, and there's always an interest in civilianizing posts wherever we can. But the important role of supervision, field supervision, is an awareness of what our expectations are on a burglary investigation, on an auto theft. When is follow-up, when does that investigation, should it proceed? And when does it come to a logical breaking point where the officer's preliminary investigation stops and now the matter can be transferred through a supervisory review and assigned to a detective? And that is something more than the arbitrary, did you fill in the required boxes? So it is, there is more science to that as far as expectations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And lastly, to your point though, Commissioner Briggs, there is a civilian component. We didn't put all the steps in this, we try to make it a higher overview. Prior getting to the supervisor, or actually after getting to the supervisor, there is an element where our area records personnel are going to be doing a quick validation, just to make sure fields are entered correctly and we have validation. But where Chief McMahon comes into his point he was making, as it comes to the narrative, the probable cause, the constitutional policing, the expectations, all that narrative is the primary function of the supervisor to make sure it's all there and it's meeting department expectations.
Got it. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but if you're familiar with Clery and the Clery Act and colleges and universities having to report, we have civilianized our Clery review of officers' arrests and field activity. And with all due respect, they've got to know that these officers are in fact engaged in the right penal code section, what municipal code section. It's probably more complicated than the penal code section because you've got geographical issues you've got to deal with. Is it on our campus Clery geographical map or not, or is it Southwest? So I would just offer that up with all due respect to officers doing that review, and I understand that. We had to make that change because we couldn't afford to have officers doing that review at USC, and it seems to be working. So anyway, just a thought. Chief, I just wanted to ask you, I know you've thought about this. So as we transition over a year, you've got people moving from bureau to bureau over that year. So if I'm in Southwest and I'm working with Officer Shields, and she's got this system because Central got it first and Southwest doesn't have it, does that complicate anything that we're both sitting in the same car and she's got the new system and I'm still working on paper?
No, I think the system or the way this is being presented, it's relatively straightforward, and our officers are, remember, we've got about 3 generations between us and a person working in a black and white, and they're very much, respectfully, they're very much more attuned to, and have a desire to go to the electronics and get away from the paper project. So there's an incentive for that, and I believe that the training that's being done, we have some movement from one bureau to the next, but when they're taking the entire bureau, that's South Bureau, 1,600 people. If 4 or 5 people leave Southwest and go to Central, well, first of all, the Central Bureau has already been trained, so they'll adopt that. If they go to West Bureau, they're back to paper reports, and yeah, they're going to have to take a step back, which is going to be a little bit discouraging, but only for 3 months, because West Bureau is right behind that, and their ambition is to have this, our ambition is to have this department-wide by June of 24. So it should be a period, that's our ambition, is that it should be it's a rough period, but this model works far better than what we envisioned 7 years ago when our earlier effort fell short, which was we train the entire department and then we wait until the entire department is trained before we flip the switch. And what we found is that everyone loses the resident knowledge of what they taught because the shelf life on this is relatively, very quick.
So you're actually getting to my question. So if I'm in South Bureau and I've been trained and I get transferred to Central, this goes with me, right?
Well, your phone stays with you, but the application's mobile. Remember, it's just an icon on your phone or an icon on your computer. So if you're in West Bureau, we're still going to be on the CCAD system. We're not going to be on the new RMS system. Okay. We're going to, and I was talking with just ComStat yesterday about this year of transition where they're having to go back and forth between NIBRS and UCR is going to be, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to allow us to transition an organization of our size, I think, in an orderly fashion. But it's going to require, the first year is going to be more burdensome. We expect to see the efficiencies in year 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, thank you.
And President Suthers, we'll always have the ability to go back to do paper. So if you transfer to a division is still on paper, that transition is going to be easy. But specifically, it relates to, as you held up your cell phone, technology-wise, you could complete your IR. But unfortunately, division you transfer to that's still on paper won't have the infrastructure behind it to support it.
You just answered the question. Okay, got it. Thank you. And also, thank you for answering my other question. My second question was going to be, do you know of a law enforcement agency that's been victimized by ransomware? So you answered that. The only last question I have is looking at the incident-based reporting on NIBRS and CYBRS, and I'm sure I have the right experts in front of me. There was some incompatibility last year with hate crime reporting between municipal law enforcement agencies and the FBI. Does this have anything to do with that, A? And B, are we now able to share that information? Because I understand that we were actually ahead of the FBI and that we could take the report, but they couldn't receive the report.
That's correct. So, the FBI put their foot down in 2020 to say, hey, we're going to this new model, right? And we're not accepting any more data off of the SRS until the hate crime report went to the United States Congress, and they wanted to know why there was discrepancies and why agencies weren't reporting it. This all came to light, and Director Ray had a change of thought where we're going to accept the SRS data until agencies can get on board with NIBRS. But to answer the second part of your question, yes, once we get on NIBRS, we'll be able to fully report everything that the FBI requires us with regards to hate crimes and hate incidents.
Great, thank you very much. If there are no more questions or comments, I would go ahead and thank you for your report. Doesn't seem like this is an item we have to vote on, so appreciate all of your work. Looking forward to the system coming on board. And as the Chief mentioned, there's a couple generations between us and the people that are using it. I'm sure they're going to appreciate having to. I know as a professor, when I ask people to write something, it's their eyes glaze over. So I'm glad we're going to do this, and I'm really happy for all your work, so thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll move on to the last regular agenda item. Item B, Department's report relative to the fiscal year 2024-2025 proposed budget. And I have Administrator Sauer and several other individuals here. And again, thank you for a couple weeks ago. And thank you for being here this morning. If you'll just introduce everyone.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Tiefenk, Mr. Sibley, Chief Moore, and Mr. De La Guerra. I'm Anne Marie Sauer, the Commanding Officer of Administrative Services Bureau. I'm joined by Police Administrators Trina Unzicker, the Commanding Officer of Fiscal Group, and Assistant Commanding Officer Marla Gaspy. We are here to present the Department's 24-25 proposed budget. I'm going to provide a brief overview on the process and then turn it over to my colleagues. Although this budget does not start until July 1st, 2024, we began working on the budget in July of this year. Our proposed budget is consistent with the Mayor's budget policy and the goals outlined in the Department's strategic plan, which Ms. Unzicker will go over in more detail. We started with more than 500 distinct budget requests, which were vetted to ensure they align with our strategic goals, and ultimately ended up with our critical requests that are before you today. After the proposed budget is approved by this board, it will be transmitted to the Mayor and the City Administrative Officer. We will spend the next few months answering a multitude of questions prior to the Mayor presenting her proposed budget. Per the charter, this must occur no later than April 20th of each year. At that point, the City Council has its proverbial bite at the apple, first by the Budget and Finance Committee and then the full Council. By charter, the Council must adopt a budget by June 1st of each year that will become effective on July 1st. Although I can describe the process in less than 2 minutes, it takes the work of a small team in Fiscal Group to put together the 750-plus pages you have before you. I want to conclude by acknowledging that team. In a week that is especially focused on gratitude, I owe a debt of gratitude to the leadership of Trina and Mara. I'm also incredibly thankful for the OIC of our budget section, Patricia Paterno, and Assistant OIC Dorothy Russo, and their amazing team. They are the small but incredibly mighty team who've worked tirelessly to get us to this point, and I'm thankful for all of them. With that, I will now turn it over to Ms. Unziger.
Good morning. I'm Trina Unziker. I'm the commanding officer of Fiscal Group, and I'd like to give you an overview of the 24-25 proposed budget. In line with the mayor's budget development letter from October, we're presenting our 24-25 budget under circumstances of modest growth projections and ongoing employee contract negotiations that will significantly influence the city's budget commitments. In this context, we prepared a budget emphasizing cost-neutral proposals achieved through identified offsets and cost reductions where possible. We prioritized filling existing position vacancies, and we limited requests for new positions. The proposed 24-25 budget is made up of requests scrutinized for absolute necessity. Each request ties into the department's strategic goals. The budget as proposed is approximately $2.1 billion compared to approximately $1.9 billion in 23-24, which is the current fiscal year. And that includes funds provided for the LAPD within the city's budget, or a net increase of 12.65% over the current year budget. This excludes non-departmental requests, which are items funded by the city outside of the LAPD budget. This figure represents an increase of approximately $239 million. Of that $239 million, approximately $196 million represents increases due to salaries, new recruit expenses, and hiring incentives, including $156 million resulting from city negotiated increases to sworn salaries. Ensuring a robust hiring plan and requesting that sufficient funds be placed within LAPD's budget is tied to both our strategic goals to protect Los Angeles and to maximize workforce potential. We also advance these strategic goals by providing for a recruit housing subsidy initially funded by the Police Foundation that we feel should be standardized as part of the city's budget. We're mindful of the need to offset costs and therefore eliminated hiring incentives for sworn personnel, given the other strategies in our budget to attract the best and brightest to serve in the department. The budget focuses on the department's highest priorities, the first of which is hiring. Our hiring plan includes 780 sworn officers, which is an ambitious number that balances the need to rebuild our sworn forces with existing recruitment and training capacity. We know that this will be a significant challenge given the recruiting difficulties that law enforcement agencies are experiencing across the country. So we believe that the additional funds we've requested for marketing and advertising will allow LAPD to remain competitive with surrounding law enforcement agencies. Equally important is the need to rebuild our civilian staffing. We've included hiring incentives to offset attrition and promote local hiring. The proposed budget includes a hiring plan to hire 497 civilians. A continued focus for civilian hiring is to fill all vacant police service representative, detention officer, property officer, and security officer positions. We expect that this hiring focus will improve 911 service levels and free up sworn personnel for field assignments. Beyond our staffing requests, LAPD's proposed budget priorities, which are aligned with our strategic plan goals, include the following. For strategic goal number 1, to protect Los Angeles, we request additional sworn overtime funds. Funding is requested for costs resulting from the new MOU 24 increases, as well as to continue the Violent Crime Task Force and minimum staffing requirements. Next, civilian overtime. Funding is requested to meet operational demands as we rebuild our workforce, achieve staffing minimums, and reduce backlogs. We are requesting a helicopter replacement through the Municipal Improvement Corporation of Los Angeles, also known as MICLA. Funding is requested for the life cycle replacement of one helicopter. For the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, or MTA contract, we've requested continued funding for 110 positions, overtime, and other operational costs totaling $103 million in support of that contract. And that contract cost is fully reimbursable. For strategical number 2, which is to serve Los Angeles, we request funding for the Community Safety Partnership expansion to Elgin Sutton Park and Gilbert Lindsay Park at approximately $2.5 million. We're requesting to continue nearly $1 million to sustain the alternative unarmed response and continue our partnership with the D.D. Hirsch Suicide Prevention Center. We will also continue our mental evaluation unit expansion of 12 positions within our proposed hiring plan as part of our commitment to alternative response. For interim homeless housing sites, Care Plus teams, and Inside Safe, we're requesting increased funding to address growing demand. For youth and family programs, we're continuing funding for various programs, including support in our proposed hiring plan for the Family Justice Center and our partnership with the Los Angeles Unified School District to support the Police Academy magnet schools. For strategic goal number 3, to improve organizational accountability and restructuring, we're requesting for the After Action Report Implementation Plan to continue funding from the current year, which is focused on enhancing LAPD's capabilities in managing public demonstrations, civil unrest, and other major events by providing necessary training and equipment, ensuring preparedness, and reducing risks to the public and officers. For strategic goal number 4, to modernize technology, we're proposing to establish a real-time crime center. We request approximately $1 million to acquire real-time crime center technology that will enhance coordination between air support and ground units, providing real-time updates and strategic dispatch of resources. There's also a migration to the TASER 10 device for improved accuracy, the elimination of the drive stun feature, and a reduction in the need to use critical force. We also include requests for life cycle replacement of equipment to maintain and keep pace with technology advancements. For strategic goal number 5, to enrich training, we request $250,000 for the LAPD University software. This is designed to provide quality distance learning training to all sworn personnel, and it covers courses like use of force, de-escalation, and implicit bias, enhances officer skills in high-stress situations, and it supports continuous professional development. We're also requesting approximately $350,000 to resurface the vehicle driving training track at the Davis Training Facility. This will address officer safety issues, and also $200,000 to replace 2 turbine pumps to sustain skid recovery training on that track. For strategic goal number 6, to maximize workforce potential, we request vehicle replacement. The funding is requested for replacement black and white, sedans, motorcycles, electric vehicles, pickup trucks, passenger buses, all of this in the effort to avoid worsening our current out-of-service rate and the percentage of vehicles beyond their life cycle standard. We're also requesting motor transport price adjustments, about $3.3 million to address higher costs for vehicle parts, repairs, and the need for additional equipment due to aged vehicles that require more maintenance. This increase is intended to ensure proper vehicle maintenance and support, mitigate safety risks, and align with LAPD's goals of effective training and technology modernization. We're establishing the Whole Officer Wellness Program, which is aimed at improving social, physical, and psychological health for officers. This program includes an incentive-based component in funding for training days. The initiative is designed to enhance officer morale, productivity, retention, and significantly impact well-being. We're requesting $1 million for facilities maintenance at LAPD facilities to address needs that are not currently being covered by the Department of General Services. That request addresses comprehensive building maintenance, including general upkeep and safety-related repairs. This is to prevent facility deterioration and to mitigate injury risks to staff and the public. The goal is to improve employee morale and to maintain staff or retain staff. And then an additional $100,000 to support the Metropolitan Division Mounted Unit and the K-9 platoon. This would cover the rising costs of equestrian supplies and veterinary services for police service dogs and ensure the well-being of the department's 26 horses and 24 police service dogs. Finally, our strategic goal number 7, to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're introducing additional initiatives aimed at increasing DEI within our workforce to improve workplace climate and culture. These initiatives include DEI-focused training for promotional interviews, enhancing DEI in recruitment and advancement, and hosting cross-rank assemblies to facilitate open dialogues between leadership and staff. The programs are designed to address the challenges of hiring and retaining a diverse workforce with a focus on recruiting from underrepresented communities. This concludes my overview of the proposed budget. I appreciate the opportunity to present the proposed 24-25 budget, and we are now open to any questions you have.
Well, thank you very much. I'm sure I can't even begin to count the incredible number of hours it took to put this together. We really appreciate your efforts. And have you summarized all of that, those hundreds of pages in just a few minutes. It's really appreciated. And thank you for your time a couple of weeks ago to sit with Vice President Shields and I to really give us an opportunity to weigh in. And with that, I'm going to yield to Vice President Shields for any questions or comments.
If my voice allows it. Thank you for that presentation. There's a few entries that have the asterisks next to them, including like homelessness support for $12 million, community safety partnership of over $2 million. And it says that it's a continuation of funding provided in 2023, 24 to 24, 25. Can you just explain what that really means?
So just generally speaking, some of that funding is actually outside of the LAPD budget currently. So while it was originally proposed to be within our budget, it is in the parts of it are within the unappropriated balance. And so part of what we're trying to distinguish is the difference between the resources that are available to us as a department generally, either within the department or outside within the city resources, and try to draw a parallel between what our needs are for the current year and the future year. So I will ask Mara Legaspi, who's the Assistant Commanding Officer, to go into more detail about what that means.
Hi. There's about $30 million in the unappropriated balance that throughout the year the department has to request the funding through council action for that funding to be moved into our budget. So that's what the asterisk represents, is that we are working on getting that funding into our budget in the current year.
If I could add, on the $12 million, I believe you're on page 2 of the budget summary, proposed budget summary. That number represents about $8 million, I believe, that was in the unappropriated balance. And then an additional 4 for what's anticipated as the ongoing efforts in supporting sanitation and Inside Safe operations. A number of sites that Inside Safe has been quite successful at. Their success is in part due to the outreach engagement, the placement of personnel, but also of persons experiencing homelessness, but also now, quote unquote, holding that ground, meaning that there are ongoing patrols so that those areas are not repopulated. And in looking at the homeless coordination out of the Office of Operations, we've identified that for that staffing, which those sites, the number of those sites continue to grow and expand, is that we're going to need additional funding to ensure that we have continued presence. Currently, I get a morning report of at least probably 7 or 8 areas, at least at a minimum, of where sites are and that they're not being repopulated. Venice Beach, downtown Civic Center, and other locations are examples of that. So it's, as she indicated, portion of it is, it's 12 million because of the budget dance that we do, what's been given to us, what's promised to us for this year. And yet, we wanted to be clear that with 30 million sitting in the unappropriate balance that we anticipate going to, that we are going to receive it as part of strategic initiative, including the after-action report, training aspects, that we wanted to be a budget that showed new money, but also that that it didn't look like we're asking for money on top of money, if you will, that it's being double counted. This is an effort to just be, here's what we have planned and anticipated for this year, here's what we need in addition. You'll also see deletions, if you go back to the narrative, you'll see the downsizing, for instance, of the recall program, and you'll also see the downsizing in the number of some of our recruits and the associated expenses on there. So it's meant to show both additions and deletions.
One question I had about the community safety partnership. This is an expansion of CSP into new sites. And do we have the full kind of community buy-in, given that CSP doesn't happen alone, but with the sites here, has there been a full buy-in by the community there?
Yeah, it's my understanding that there is support from the community. As a matter of fact, we got a call from the council member's office who has both these sites in his area. And so they had questions, wanted to ensure that there were sufficient resources provided in the budget. So I know that there is community support, and in addition, there's also council member support.
Thank you, Chief. And I will say I'm a true believer that, you know, your budget should reflect your values. So I am happy to see the investment in the alternative response program, homelessness support, the expansion of CSP, and also looking inward to our most important assets of the officers themselves that are there, and focus on retention and wellness and DEI. So thank you for that. And that's all my voice will allow. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Shields. Commissioner Kalanche.
Thank you. I have a lot of questions, so I was actually going to request that we hold a vote for a week. I just got the budget Friday, 700 pages. So unfortunately, like as a commissioner, I got the budget on Friday. I don't know if anybody else got it before, but I'd like more time to review and to ask questions.
Commissioners, just as a matter of point of clarity, we are actually overdue now by more than a week. And so I apologize for this coming before you. There was an effort working with the executive committee, but the number of requests that were had in here and fashioning them down to what were the most critical aspects is what you have before you. And I would ask for your support, recognizing that this is the next step allows the CAO to begin to digest this. And as they're
I totally
preparing-
understand. I think it's hard as a commissioner to be able to make a decision on a 700-page budget without having an opportunity to ask questions, except at a commission meeting where we don't have, I mean, I don't want to take up 3 hours of your time, right? So I just wanted to bring that up because it seems to happen every year.
Well, I would encourage you to take the 3 hours. We will have budget meetings that will last for hours with the mayor's office as well as with the budget hearing itself, and then also with the full council. So it is recognized this is a complex document. It is one that has many facets of it, but the department stands ready to answer and spend as much time as you feel necessary to address these questions.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's fair for the other commissioners to sit here. But I would appreciate time to maybe either during this budget period, while we're discussing the budget in the process, to ask more questions. But here are some of my questions. I do see the CS, and I'll just like lay them out. You don't have to even answer them because I don't think these numbers are going to change. But we're expanding CSP. What are the outcomes for previous CSP sites, right? How do we know that 10 officers is the right amount of officers? And then does this 2 million actually, this is for the new sites, what is the total for all of CSP? I think I would love to see that number. There's, let's see, the LUSD magnet, how much of LAPD investment is part of that? I know it's a inconsequential number when it comes to like a $4 billion budget, but what amount of resources are being put into the LUSD magnet, and do we see maybe the benefit of having that program? Does it lead to more interest in the field? Does it lead to, I mean, we don't have an opportunity to talk about outcomes of some of these programs that we're supporting. You did answer the 30 million in the, that's kind of set aside that we have to request. Let's see, alternative response. I think that although, I mean, I'm glad that it's in here, but it seems to be part of an ongoing program. I would love to see a vision for more investment in alternative response, mental health units. And I know that would increase our budget, right? But I would love to see it in a budget and then have the mayor, city council, like change it, right? That it shows that we have a vision for this. Yeah, so those are some of my questions. I know we're probably not going to delay the vote, but I would love an opportunity to sit with you or with the chief or someone to go over the budget in more detail so that I'm understanding what I'm voting on.
And I
versus-
welcome that, because I would say everything you've mentioned is part of our strategic plan. And so this budget is reflective of the plan which was adopted and presented to the commission. And yet I recognize the complexities of that. We're more than welcome to sit down and have each conversation. For instance, on the magnet program, which has about a 100 graduation rate, the interest levels and future magnet student graduates going to college, going to the military,
does it
and coming to
cost
law
us? Like, what
enforcement.
does it cost
And
us? Yeah.
we have that information, and Commander Giselle Espinoza can sit down and go through that, as well as now Deputy Chief Billy Brockway on the total expense of what the Community Safety Partnership, as well as the survey results and the amplified crime reduction, particularly violent crime reduction, that the 10 sites have had over and above what the overall reduction in LAPD's overall crime picture. But getting into those details, we would absolutely welcome that opportunity and recognize that this is just, I know it's difficult, but the process of our people working through this, they have worked night and day in order to reach this point. And unfortunately, the amount of work and getting the information and then consolidating into something that still represents more than a 12% increase, and that's in tight fiscal times. We are on borrowed time with the CAO, but any item on here is certainly open. We want to hear and listen to your concerns and also address them, and hopefully meet them.
And I appreciate all the time. I know how the city works and government works, and you have to get your budgets in early. I think I think unfair for me as a commissioner is that I see it Friday afternoon, which I don't have time to review Friday, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, maybe Monday, and then I have to vote on Tuesday on it. That's what's unfair, yeah. And I know this happens every year, so, yeah. So that's it. But thank you so much, and I will continue to look through it and ask questions as they come up, yeah.
We're available anytime.
Got it.
Happy to help.
Thank you. Commissioner Briggs?
Thank you, and thank all of you. I know the work that goes into putting this together. I've worked with you closely these past 3 years in this process. I've narrowed my questions to some things that when I look out at the department and I see it come back year after year after year, for example, helicopter replacement. And so I'm looking at it, smiling because we had this last year. We had it the year before last. And then we sent it over to City Council. And they simply don't recognize the urgency of replacing one of our helicopters that's life-saving for our citizens. They think it's, maybe maintenance. Well, at this point, we're at duct tape holding it together. And God forbid it fall out of the sky and injure some citizens, and then everybody would be saying, oh, why didn't we replace it? Well, we've put it before them now, since I've been sitting here on the commission for close to 3 years, asking them to replace a helicopter.
And Commissioner, they have. There are some of these, this is part of the budget, unfortunate problems. There are items on here that are looked to be new as to suggest that they didn't have funding last year. That's not the case. Airship is one of them. We, on average, ask for 1 ship a year, with every other year 2 ships to maintain life cycle replacement. Last year, there was an airship provided in the budget for us, as there was the year before. So this, it may look, and that's one of the anomalies here, is it looks like we're asking, what happened to last year's ship, and that this is new money. It's the way it's classified, as it's been explained to me. It's a budget exercise that certain expenses are listed as if brand new, but yet they're ongoing expenses.
Well, did we get a new ship? Or?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, that was my concern.
No, we
did.
did.
We get a new ship, then
Yes.
we get a new airship.
We did.
Because I was concerned. I'm like, wait a minute, why are we coming back and we had this last year?
Now, there are items on here that have, for instance, the track rehab of Davis, at least 6 years that we've been requesting that. And it is something that's gone across the street. And the city council, in fairness, the council and the mayor, they have finite resources and they struggle to meet the demands of all the departments. But we do, to your question and concerns, as well as the other commissioners, we identify legitimate requests. There's no padding here of what we need. And then we recognize also the city has its finite resources, which at times has resulted in support from the foundation or support by other grants and other contributors to essential needs of the organization.
One of those essential needs, as pointed out by this budget request, are vehicle replacement. There are a lot of vehicles that they should be in the graveyard, literally, or a junkyard, somewhere else, but not in a police station. And so I'm hoping that city council will go that extra measure and provide what we've requested this year.
So this budget, actually, this team, I've throttled them back. This budget will purchase about 800 vehicles. Our real need to improve our out-of-service rate, which is currently 20% on black and whites, and half of our patrol fleet of extended beyond their 100,000 mile or 10-year service life. To actually lower that number, we'd have to purchase more than 800 vehicles, more like 1,100 vehicles. But given the other impacts we've identified here, that we've curtailed this where it will maintain our fleet at these numbers. And this has been a challenge of trying to catch up because of the last 5 to 7 years of us not maintaining a 3-year replacement process. If we were to make this a true 3-year, year one of a 3-year process, this number would, rather than being 800, approximately 800 vehicles, would have to be closer to 1,100. Is that fair?
We have about a little over 1,200 vehicles that have exceeded their mileage criteria. So, I mean, as the chief said, for black and whites, it's 51%. So each of our different vehicles, that 1,100 would be a good start. But we are, again, using fiscal constraint.
And also the amount of mechanics that we have.
Yes.
And the supply chain issues of, getting that many vehicles here, getting them outfitted and street ready, that we want to identify what we think realistically our mechanical existing workforce can absorb and put into the field, and at the same time save about how many millions are we pulled this back? It was 80 million, I think is what the number was. It was.
That sounds about right, yes.
Yeah, and so I think we pulled that back 20 or 30 million from what
Yes.
this request would otherwise be.
Final issue, at least for me right now. The facilities, repair and maintenance. $1 million is not going to do it. I'm sorry. That number, I can go 10 times that number. And I don't know that would approach actually what's needed in the 21 divisions. When you go out and you visit them and you see the conditions of some of those divisions.
So this budget actually would replace the surfaces at Newton Street. This is a building that's been open for 26 years, I believe, or 27 years, and has never had its flooring replaced. And it is in terrible condition. In the 1 million addition to that is the deferred maintenance that has been that the department has worked through. I am encouraged that Commissioner Suthers, as the president, has identified that he is asking the department, as is Mayor Bass, for us to identify facility upgrades and facility maintenance, deferred maintenance, and what those needs are. I would hope that outside of this budget process, that refurbishment and improvement of our facilities is something that can be identified separately and not lost in a 700-page document. Because certainly restoration of our technology or modernizing our technology, restoration of our vehicle fleet, and maintenance of our facilities are the best three efforts to improve the morale of this organization and the working conditions our people are exposed to.
Thank you. I mean, I'll take that, but I would like to see that number higher still.
Understood. And Commissioner Briggs, just so you know, this is an additional $1 million in addition to what is already in our base budget. So that is intended to provide our facilities management division with the flexibility to be able to choose priorities as they identify them. So part of the challenge is working with another city department like GSD, where they may have a separate set of priorities, they may be pulled in different directions, they may not have the support to be able to address LAPD's needs as quickly as we would like. So this is intended to be able to provide us the flexibility to be able to partner with vendors and be able to get some of this work accomplished. In addition to that, there's also a submission, which is the Capital Technology Improvement Expenditure Program, which is outside of the budget and it's out of the scope of our presentation. But there are a number of different requests. There are 11 requests that have been forwarded as part of that budget. And so that would also provide additional maintenance. The other thing I'd like to mention is that we're requesting landscape maintenance services as well for 12 different facilities. So that's an additional $300,000. So there's a number of requests for facilities that are included in the budget and then outside the budget as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, President Suthers.
So I could not have stated it as eloquently as Commissioner Briggs. You know how I feel about it. We've talked about facilities, maintenance, and repairs. I want to thank Chief Moore and Mr. T-Fank, because I've been on this bandwagon since the day I was sworn in 8 months ago, 2 days from now, but who's counting? And I really believe that we can't demonstrate to our personnel how much they mean to us other than the conditions under which they have to work. That speaks volumes to officer wellness, and I'm going to ask for us to go the extra mile. I would love to see some before and after pictures based on this budget of what they look like today and what they look like a year from now when we're here, so we can at least demonstrate that things are being improved.
And And we will be happy to do that. And as a reminder, this budget for the current year we're in was required to absorb over $1 million of repair to the Southwest facility that had an arson attack and other gates and fencing and damages to facilities that we've seen that are above and beyond what's in the budget. So the flexibility that this team has demonstrated by robbing Peter to pay Paul to cover some of these extraordinary expenses is really to be commended.
No, thank you, Chief. That shopping cart was rolled into Southwest the day before I was scheduled to visit them, so I still haven't been there. In any event, I also want to thank you for, as Commissioner Shields and Commissioner Briggs mentioned, the allocation for alternatives to armed response. Nothing was more important than to listen to the patrol officer hours saved because we have those programs. I have two technical questions, which I know will be easy for the three of you. I'm going to date myself here. The Real-Time Crime Center, what happened to RACER?
Race.
And is this something different?
Here, John. You want my chair? Oh, thank you, Anne Marie. Good morning, good afternoon again, Commissioners. John McMahon, LAPD CIO. The department used to have a RACER, Real-Time Analysis Crime Response. In all honesty, that effort back then may have been real-time in its sense as they knew it, but there was really no real element of real-time as we know it today.
Okay.
Real-Time Crime Center today, and I'll ask for the board's patience, as I hope to present to the board a compelling case for what's needed in Los Angeles. But right now, this is just seed money to give us a real-time crime center in every sense of the word.
Okay.
That's using modern technology to put real-time information in the officer's hands as they're responding to calls. So if you allow me another week or two to give you guys a presentation on Real-Time Crime Center, this $1 million money is just seed money to get started. But in Los Angeles, the nation's second largest city, we're pretty much one of the few cities that don't have this technological capability. And with the World Cup upcoming and the Olympics coming, it's a real needed investment that this city needs to make. And I look forward to presenting that case to you in the next meeting or so.
Thank you. The other question I have is, I noticed on our donations earlier today that we're taking donations, and I don't believe this is the first time, for ballistic helmets. And I just want to know why all of our protective equipment is not covered by the city's budget allocation, and we have to have donations for protective gear for our personnel.
So let me ask Deputy Chief Mark Reyna to step forward on this. This is a basic safety equipment is provided by the department in ballistic helmets. However, there also are some weight saving and feature enhancements to safety equipment such as ballistic helmets that are above, if you will, the quote-unquote standard issue.
That's correct. The city will cover our ballistic helmets for patrol officers. As a matter of fact, we just had a meeting this morning discussing there's a period of time that you can have that helmet and it has to be changed out, and that's happening right now. It's starting with our supply division with the city. But I believe this request, I don't have it in front of me, the entity that asked for it, but certain units like Gang and Narcotics Division or SWAT or different specialized units will ask for a different type of helmet in a sense that is not covered by our budget. And for example, Gang and Narcotics ask for a certain helmet because when they go into the illicit lab locations, the gas mask isn't fitting the helmet that is supplied by the department. So they have a different type of helmet that they wanted where the gas mask will fit better, so it's a better safety precaution for them when they go into these illicit labs. And that is covered by, for example, the foundation buying those helmets for that entity.
So I'm sort of familiar with specialized helmets, from SWAT to mounted to gangs to narcotics. I'm just again asking why we have to depend on foundation money for things. To me, it's protective gear, and it's in case of specialized units, they have specialized gear, and I would argue that it should be covered by the city's budget.
We would agree with you, and yet uniform allowance and supplies and the amount of monies that are set aside for that actually comes back to the department does not simply provide for these added enhancements, you'll have your standard equipment, but the added earmark of $250,000 or $300,000 for one unit is impacted. So this is really where we see oftentimes you see items that this should be part of a big city budget. And the foundation, their generosity, they remind us of that, as do the philanthropic donors. And this is something that you see in the budget now that is going across the street, adoption of that process, where we're asking the city to fund the 100 of the rent allowance for $1.2 million as an incentive. Currently, we have more than 70 of our recruits. In fact, this young man that I visited bedside today, 9 months in the field, and has taken advantage. He moved here from out of state, and he's in a rental assisted unit. That was a $2.5 million foundation-supported initiative that we're now transferring or asking to transfer onto the city load. And the same with the equipment. Body-worn video was an initial $1 million investment by the Police Foundation that is now a $12 million annual fee paid for by the city on an ongoing subscription basis. So that transference is occurring, and we'll look for every opportunity to continue to have permanent funding, and frankly, because it's also predictable. Once we can get it onto a city budget item, then it generally it's met the test of that it's warranted and needed, and absolutely needed, and we can depend on it.
No, thank you, Chief, and I certainly appreciate the generosity of the foundation. I hope I'm here long enough to see transference of funding to support all of our protective gear. And last, before I make a motion, I just want to again thank you for the magnet program. I was, let's just say, honored enough to be with the chief. We went out to the last graduation, and I'm always encouraged when I see young men and women that have 100% graduation rate and go on to colleges and universities. And it was really an interesting and very enjoyable morning to be there with them that morning when they were actually going through their annual inspection. So thank you, Chief, for letting me go with you. So with that, I'm going to move that we approve the department's report and transmit to the mayor and city administrative officer. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Any abstentions?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Okay. One nay? Okay. So the motion carries. Thank you again for all your hard work, and really appreciate the report. And hopefully you'll get a chance to exhale for a second before you move on to the next phase of this process. Thank you. So with that, the commission will now move into closed session.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers, 5A1 and B1 in accordance to Government Code 54957.
The commission has concluded closed session, and the meeting will resume, and we'll have a report out by the executive director.
Commission has concluded its work in closed session. Item 5A1, officer involved shooting number 001-23. Commission on a 4-0 vote adopted the recommendations of the chief of police, which were, tactics, tactical debrief. 1 police officer 1, 1 police officer 2, 1 police officer 3. Administrative disapproval, 1 sergeant 1, 2 police officer 2s, 1 police officer 1. Drawing and exhibiting in policy, 1 police officer 3, 3 police officer 2s. Less lethal use of force in policy, 2 police officer 2s, 1 police officer 2, activation 1 through 4. Administrative disapproval, 1 police officer 2, activation 5. Lethal use of force out of policy, administrative disapproval, 2 police officer 2s. Related item 5B1, adjudicated. That concludes the report out.
Thank you, sir. There's no further business. I will make a motion that the meeting is adjourned. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.